Welcome to Homebrewer TV. We've got some fun to do today. I want to know, have you checked on one of our great advertisers? Homebrewtalk.com. Have you signed up? Have you found that incredible information that forum is wonderful? And a shout out to everybody on that forum. Also, have you checked out the other advertiser? To Design Art, the one that's going to help you get more equipment? Well, if you haven't, check it out. Today, we're actually doing a little brewing. Yes, we are. And then I had this letter with questions, and we have 2 more beers to taste. So you stay with us. We'll be right back. This segment sponsored by homebrewtalk.com. Join us and talk about your homebrew ideas, questions, recipes, or anything else to help with your homebrewing enjoyment. homebrewtalk.com. Join us on this great forum. Welcome to my brewing area, better known as Bad Frog Brewery. You all have asked me to talk about doing my all-grain brewing and using my brew bench, which we introduced way back when this show first started. If you also remember, we talked about a beer that I fell in love with, North Coast's Old Stock Ale. Oh, I love that beer. And I've got the recipe. So today, we're going to go through my brewing system, how I brew, and we're going to make some Old Stock Ale. I have a copy of my recipe, so now I'm going to start weighing out my grains. I like putting my bucket on top of my scale before I turn it on. That way I don't have to worry about the weight of the bucket. And I'm going to do my base grain first. I'm using Maris Otter, and I'm going to need 17 pounds. My grain mill is mounted on an old barbecue frame that has worked out quite well. The mill is powered by an old Milwaukee drill that I think is probably older than I am, and I made my own grain hopper out of some thin plywood. I use a adjustable power source for my control the speed of my drill, and I catch everything down in a nice little bucket below. My hot liquor tank is just an old converted beer keg, but I have added an outlet valve, a sight tube, and a thermometer. The hot liquor tank is calibrated, and you'll notice by these numbers here, it tells me exactly how many gallons it holds in relationship to the outlet of the valve, not how much it actually holds overall, because once I'm below that valve, nothing will come out. So that's an important tip when calibrating your hot liquor tank. My mash tun is also just an old converted keg. I added a false bottom to it with an outlet valve. I've got a temperature gauge so that I know exactly what I'm mashing at. And I have surrounded the entire unit with this aluminum insulation, and it will hold its temperature for over an hour without losing much more than a degree. So now I'm going to mash in my 20 pounds of grain. And the way I do it is I put my strike water into my mash tun and I add my grains to it. If you guys have a better way, I'd love to hear it. This is the only way I've ever known to do. I think it'd be really great if at some point I had maybe some kind of, I don't know, funnel system that the hot water came in, mixed it together. It's all set, that'd be lovely. But for now, let's mash it in and, oh, you probably noticed I could probably use a better mash spoon. Just the paddle doesn't, well, it works for now. And I got a little story to share. When I first got into all grain brewing, I was so excited, got my system set up, and I ordered up my kit. Of course, I ordered it ground, because at that time I did not have a mill. So, worked out great, order up my grain, I dump it in, and I had spent the entire evening reading about all the problems that I might experience. And one of the things I kept hearing about was the fact that it'll clump up, break up all those clumps, because you want the water hitting all of the grain parts. Well, so I am so set for that. And I just pour my grain in. Now this will let you know that sometimes we're not always the brightest. Turned out the grain hadn't been ground. Because I am mixing it in going, this is not clumping at all, this is working great. Well, of course the mash didn't work at all. And I probably should have paid a little more attention to the fact that when I ordered it ground, it didn't come ground. Lesson learned, never had a problem again. It was one of the things that ran me out to get a great mill. Well, we need to leave this now for about an hour, extracting all the sugars and that conversion of starch to sugar. Well, when I also began my first time doing all grain, I went fly sparging. It's been the way I've done my system forever. It's just what I'm used to. And once you're used to how something works well, you stay with it. So this is my fly sparger. Cute little arm that spins around and allows the water to be spread over that bed of grain in a gentle way. And when I am running my wort into my boil kettle, I want to be adding as much water into this with my sparge water temperatures as I am putting into my boil kettle. So it's a little bit of a balance system going on there. But the fly sparging for me works wonderfully. Takes a little longer, but I love the beer that comes out of it. Well, we've let our mash do its conversion for the last hour. And now it's time to start actually moving that wort into our boil kettle. One of the things I want to do is I want my grain bed to sit down and provide a real nice filter element, because I don't want a bunch of stuff dumping into the boil kettle. So there's a couple ways that I've been taught how to do this. One brewer that I knew took a big pitcher, and out of his hose he would fill the pitcher and then slowly put the pitcher back in until what was flowing out of his hose was perfectly clear without any grain pieces. I didn't care for that idea, so what I do is I put a little plastic lid inside. It just sits there and floats on top of the water. And I just carefully run it back into the mash tun until it starts flowing really clear. Once that happens, I know I'm ready to convert it over to the boil kettle for our full boil. Well, my grain bed is setting well. I'm getting a nice clear flow of wort into my boil kettle. But I do one last thing to try and catch anything that might slip by and go in. And I have this very fine screen colander, stainless steel, which I actually set into the top of my boil kettle, and I run my wort through that. And it'll catch any little thing that just might happen to make it through the grain bed. For this recipe, we're going to be using 2 different kinds of hops, and they're going to be added at 2 different times during our boil. The first set of hops will be added to our boil kettle at 60 minutes before the end, and that's going to be our Fugel. Then with 15 minutes left in the boil, we'll add our East Kent Golding hops, and that's going to give us the great aroma we're looking for. One thing that I really do enjoy is having a good hop bag, and this is my hop bag. Put your hops in this, suspend it into your boil, and you're not going to have all of those extra hop particles hanging around when you end up pumping your wort out. It makes it easier to clean, and these things are reusable. It's a fine mesh bag. I think you'll like them if you try it. Now, there is the discussion that you lose about 10% of your hops efficiency. Well, all we need to do is add a little more hops to equate for that, and you still don't have that mess to have to clean up. I don't know if you've noticed, but for this shooting, I'm sitting on the back side of the brew bench so that you guys have a better view of what I'm doing. It does make it a little odd for me. But here's a little tip. Spray bottle full of cold water, it will knock down quickly the foaming that happens just before you go to a good boil. And you can do this over and over again. You don't have to worry about microorganisms or anything else because it's going to be going through a 60-minute boil, so they're going to be killed. Spray bottle works really well. All right, it's time to add our hops to our hop bag and into our boil. Measured it out. I use these little Dixie cups. They work great. And we get it into our boil kettle. I like to make sure that it is really getting well into the water and the water's getting well inside the hops. Clamp it on, and we're just set for another 60 minutes of boil. I'll be back in 45 to add the additional hops. Okay, we got 15 minutes left to our boil, and it's time to add those additional hops. So we grab out, I've got a measured amount, get them into our bag. Here we go. Our second hop addition is now done. I use a pot of Idorfor to sanitize my lines, pump, Chiron cooler, and my aerator. And what I do is I set this up and I run the solution using the pump through all of these pieces and back into the bowl. That way I can let this run, sanitize it. My wort runs from my boil kettle down to my pump, through my plate chiller, aerator, and into the fermenter. You can see the aerated wort coming out of the aerator as compared to the clear wort running into the aerator. Our wort is in the fermenter. Our yeasts have been hired and they are going to be going to work very shortly. And hopefully we're going to have some delicious beer. And I am really looking forward to trying this old stock ale recipe. Well, only last few things to do, and that's clean up this mess. But I think I'm going to have a beer first. That'll make it go a little easier. Welcome to the tasting room. We've got 2 more beers to taste, not even slightly like each other, but who cares? And both of them, we have tasted other beers from these breweries before. So let's start with this one. This is from New Belgium. We've tasted their Fat Tire. We've tasted their Frambrosia. Now we're going to be tasting their Abbey. I found the label to be quite different from their other labels that they use. Let's see if the beer's that much different. Shout out to everybody on the forums. Hope you're enjoying the show. We have a very beautiful caramel colored brew. Lots and lots of wonderful aromas. Yes, indeed. There's a little raisin in there. Maybe a little teeny bit of, oh, that's good. Little clove maybe. I know, I gotta share this with you. The crew's always going, come on, hurry up, we want you to taste the beer. Because they know when it's over, they usually get a sample. But this is just for you guys. So, oh, that's a delightful beer. Oh, I think the beer matches the color, and it definitely has a clove taste to it. Very flavorful. I love flavorful beers. If beers don't have a lot of flavor, it's like, why am I wasting my time? And this has got a wonderful array of flavors. Beautiful mouthfeel. The carbonation is wonderful. And the taste. This is really a nice beer. And I may sound a little surprised, but I don't know why. It's a really nice beer. You're going to like it. Well, the next one is from Deschutes Brewery in Oregon. We've talked about this brewery before too. Its porter is one of my favorites. It's one that I will go out in the store and buy when I've been too lazy to brew. Well, this one is their Obsidian Stout. Now, this is named after black obsidian, which is a huge dome just outside of their brewery. And black obsidian is a rock. It's a volcanic rock, also called glass rock. It's very black. It's very beautiful. And let's see if the beer comes anywhere close to being like black obsidian. Okay, how am I pouring today? I think we're getting it a little bit better. And I do appreciate all the comments about my pouring. Well, it's a very dark, gorgeous beer with a chocolatey looking head to it. Well, the malts are just rolling across. They're really nice. And I have to admit, I do favor darker beers personally, but with very few exceptions, there's no beer out there I won't drink. All right, here we come. This is a lovely stout. The malt flavors are wonderful, and they've hopped this quite well. Hop balance is quite good. You have that nice hoppy aftertaste. Well, you know, with very few exceptions, we have not gone wrong on finding beers to taste. And these two certainly are beers that you're going to want to try. Okay. Now, I realize my thumbs up is 3 thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, 1 thumbs up. Well, we could even go some thumbs down when we get into it. And I have to remember some of the great 3 thumbs up. And I got to be careful not to give too many of those. So, New Belgian Brewing, 2.5 thumbs up. Delicious, delicious beer. Deschutes Stout, their Obsidian. Boy, it is beautiful and dark like obsidian glass. Also, 2.5 thumbs up. Give them both a try. You will like them, I guarantee. Got another email with a question about a segment we did a few shows back on making yeast starters. And this one's from Tim, upstate New York, up near Watkins Glen, one of my favorite places. Tim writes, I loved your segment on yeast starters, but I really can't afford to buy all that laboratory equipment that you have. Is there a better way for me without having to spend the almighty dollar? Well, Tim, absolutely. Yes, I love my Erlenmeyer flasks and my stir plates. I think they do a fabulous job at what they're supposed to be doing, and that's making a mini wort converted into a yeast growing mechanism. But do you have to have all of that equipment? Of course not. You still have to sanitize your water, and you need to put your DME into your water and boil it up real good so that all the horrible, nasty bacteria and other microorganisms are killed. Then, grab yourself a growler or some kind of container that holds 1 or 2 quarts. This one happens to be a 2-quart container. Basically equates to a 2-liter container. Sanitize this real well, and then all you've got to do is add the wort that you just created, that little mini mixture, put your yeasts in, grab a piece of sanitized aluminum foil, and cover the top. There you go. You can shake it up real good because we want to get a little bit of that oxygen into that wort so that it has better yeast work. But now, for basically no cost of flasks or stir plates, you have got a yeast starter. I would recommend periodically through the day when you can get to it, give it a good swirl. It works up the yeast into it and it helps it work a little better. So Tim, I think this will work for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed my brew bench as much as I do. Boy, I could make some great changes on it though. And that's going to happen, and you'll be one of the first to see it. I also hope that the brew comes out as good as I anticipate. I love that old stock ale. And if you'd like a recipe, let me know. I'll be happy to give it to you. Send me also, please, emails. Click on the comments button below. Leave me a comment. I love hearing from you guys. And don't forget, check out our fabulous sponsors, because they really do help keep this show going. We'll see you next week on Homebrewer TV.